You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your IT Fundamentals certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. In this episode, we focus on simplifying object-oriented programming for learners new to programming. You will hear terms such as class, object, method, and property, explained in plain language with relatable examples. Our goal is not to teach you how to write object-oriented code, but to help you recognize the terms and understand their meaning as they appear on the Information Technology Fundamentals Plus exam. This foundational understanding is essential for navigating programming terminology in a business or IT environment. The Information Technology Fundamentals Plus exam includes questions on basic programming concepts, and object-oriented programming appears within Domain 4. These questions are not about syntax or creating working programs. Instead, they are about identifying terms, matching definitions, and understanding how basic object-oriented principles relate to software. For example, you might be asked to distinguish between a class and an object, or to recognize what encapsulation means. The focus is on familiarity with key ideas, not technical depth. Object-oriented programming, often shortened to OOP, is a style of programming that is organized around the concept of objects. These objects are designed to represent things from the real world. Each object contains data that describes it and actions it can perform. Object-oriented programming helps keep code organized and promotes reuse. For example, once a set of objects and behaviors is defined, they can be reused throughout a program. This approach makes it easier to scale and maintain complex software projects. A class in object-oriented programming is a template used to create objects. It defines what kind of data the object will have and what actions it can perform. You can think of a class as a blueprint. If you have a class named car, it might define properties like color and model, as well as actions like start engine or stop engine. The class itself does not represent a specific car, but it contains everything needed to create many individual car objects with the same basic structure. An object is an individual instance created from a class. If the class is the blueprint, the object is the finished product built from that blueprint. Objects have the same structure and actions defined in the class, but they hold specific data values. For example, you might create an object named myCar using the car class. The myCar object might have the color blue, a model year of 2023, and the ability to call start engine when needed. Objects bring the class definition to life. A method is a function that belongs to an object. Methods are how objects perform actions. Each method is tied to a particular object and uses that object's data when it runs. For example, if you have a method named startEngine as part of the car class, then the object myCar can use that method by calling mycar.startEngine with parentheses. This tells the object to run its startEngine function. The exam may show examples like this to test your understanding of how methods relate to objects. A property, sometimes called an attribute, is a value that belongs to an object and describes something about it. Properties are part of the object's internal data. For instance, a car object might have a property named color with the value blue, or a property named mileage with a number representing distance traveled. Properties store data, while methods perform actions. Both are key parts of how objects are structured in object-oriented programming. One of the most important distinctions in object-oriented programming is the difference between a class and an object. The class is the definition or template, while the object is the result of using that template. You can create many objects from a single class, each with its own property values. On the exam, you may be asked to match an object to its class or to describe the role of a class in object creation. Understanding this relationship is central to recognizing how object-oriented design works. Encapsulation is a concept that refers to the bundling of data and methods into a single object. It also involves hiding the internal data of an object so that it can only be accessed in controlled ways, typically through methods. Encapsulation protects the integrity of the data and helps reduce accidental changes. On the Information Technology Fundamentals Plus exam, you do not need to understand how encapsulation is implemented, but you should recognize the term and know that it refers to keeping data and behavior together. Inheritance is another important concept in object-oriented programming. It allows one class to inherit the properties and methods of another class. For example, if you have a class called Vehicle, you could create a subclass called Truck that inherits from Vehicle. This means Truck automatically gets everything defined in Vehicle without rewriting the same code. Inheritance is useful for avoiding repetition and building relationships between related objects. On the exam, the concept will be introduced but not tested in depth. Polymorphism is a term used to describe how objects can behave differently depending on their context. With polymorphism, the same method name might perform different actions depending on which object it belongs to. For instance, a method called playSound might act one way for a music object and a different way for a video object. The exam may use terms like flexibility or overriding behavior when referring to polymorphism. You will not need to write polymorphic code. Just recognize what the term means in context. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Understanding object-oriented programming becomes easier when you connect it to real-world examples. Imagine a user object. This object could have properties like name, email, and password, and methods such as login or logout. These represent the data the object stores and the actions it can perform. Similarly, a product object might have properties like price and description, and a method like buy. These examples help show how objects in code mimic real-world things and behaviors, which is the central idea behind object-oriented design. One of the most powerful advantages of object-oriented programming is that it helps manage complex code more efficiently. Instead of writing everything as a long list of procedures, developers organize programs into smaller, reusable parts. Once a class is written, it can be used to create multiple objects, each with its own unique data but the same behavior. This promotes code reuse, saves time, and reduces errors. It also supports better teamwork and clearer software design by grouping related data and actions together. On the Information Technology Fundamentals Plus exam, there are specific terms you are expected to know. These include class, object, method, and property. In addition, you should recognize the concepts of inheritance, encapsulation, and instance. An instance is simply a specific object created from a class. You are not required to write code or demonstrate programming skill. The exam focuses on matching these terms to their correct definitions or identifying their role within a simple example or description. There are also certain things the exam does not require. You do not need to create a class, build objects, or write functioning code. There will be no questions asking about advanced programming rules or how to implement relationships between objects. Instead, your task is to know what each term means and how they are related. Focus on understanding the vocabulary and the logic of how object-oriented programming is structured, without worrying about technical complexity. The exam may use several question styles to test your knowledge of object-oriented terms. For example, you might be asked to match an object with the class it came from. You could also be asked to choose the correct definition of a term like inheritance or property. Another question might ask you to identify the role of a method in a given example. These questions are based on recognizing the right term or understanding how different elements of object-oriented design fit together. It is also helpful to understand how object-oriented programming compares to procedural programming. Procedural programming follows a linear, step-by-step approach, using functions to perform tasks in sequence. Object-oriented programming, in contrast, centers around objects and their interactions. Rather than writing one long list of instructions, you group related actions and data into defined units. The exam may refer to this structural difference, asking which style focuses on objects versus which one follows procedural steps. Objects are a key part of nearly all modern software. Whether you are using a mobile app, browsing a website, or playing a video game, object-oriented principles are likely at work behind the scenes. High-level programming environments like Java, Python, and C# rely heavily on object-oriented methods. While the Information Technology Fundamentals Plus exam only introduces the basic terminology, understanding these ideas prepares you for further study in programming and software development. This episode also connects to topics we have covered earlier in Domain 4. You may recall learning about variables, functions, and logical structures. Object-oriented programming builds on those ideas by grouping them into organized units called objects. Each object combines data and behavior, allowing for modular and maintainable programming. This approach also supports better readability and a clear separation of responsibilities within a program, all of which reinforce foundational programming skills. Object-oriented terms are included in the Information Technology Fundamentals Plus exam because they are part of the basic vocabulary used in information technology. Whether you are working in software development, system design, or technical support, you will encounter these terms. They help bridge the gap between basic programming logic and more advanced design principles. Understanding object-oriented vocabulary enables you to participate in IT conversations and prepares you for roles that involve working with software systems. To summarize what you have learned in this episode, object-oriented programming focuses on organizing code into classes and objects. A class is the blueprint, while an object is the actual instance created from that blueprint. Each object holds data in the form of properties and performs actions using methods. Concepts like inheritance, encapsulation, and polymorphism support code organization and reuse. Recognizing these terms and their definitions will help you succeed in Domain 4 of the exam and strengthen your foundational IT knowledge. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.